All right, ladies and gentlemen, today, snackablementalhealth.ca. It is Brandon Hahn here, Brandon W. Hahn with Karen, and our. I want to give him a cool introduction. Mm-hmm. I don't know how we officially met. I believe I was with Dr. Parker at getting orthotics made. And I ran into Clinton, and we briefly talked about something, and then basketball came up, and I was like, okay, this guy's my new chiropractor. And so we have Clinton Cybulski here today, who is a noted chiropractor in Northumberland with COSIC, which is the Coburg Orthopedic Sports Injury Clinic, and I see him once a month. And he is also, which is what we're here to talk about today, he is a basketball guru. I don't know if guru is the right word, but I would consider that. Meeting him, you're like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. Why I bring up basketball is, and the reason for him being on the show is I grew up, I was a late bloomer, so I took basketball up late, but I ended up being very good at it and went pretty far in high school with it, and then played a little bit of intramural in college, but I never really went as far as, know of a lot of people that went pretty far, but Clinton is one of the ones that actually went near pro. Or you played pro across the pond.
I was close enough to look at it.
Staring pro right in the face.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me.
Yes.
I'm really excited to be here. Excited to share some conversations about basketball. Excited to share a little bit about chiropractic care. Excited to share a little bit about life. It's fun to be here. It's fun to chat with you guys.
Okay, we brought this up last time, and I'm so happy that everyone's together. Okay, let's bring this up with this was Dr. Wales. We ended it last time. We'll negotiate back to basketball, but what is your favorite thing about life?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I love to start with that now. Let's.
Favorite thing about life. My favorite thing about life is the joy of growth. I mean, there is so many different passions, so many different joys that every single person has, and the only way you can possibly get to it is by failing forward.
That's a good answer.
I want to I should have maybe said I'm going to tell you what your favorite thing. I kind of surprised you with that comment.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And so the joy of growth is something I'm going to write down. I admit that I do say write this down quite a bit. And if you're listening to this, write down joy of growth and just look at it from your own personal standpoint. Clinton also brought up with me during one of our sessions the thing we call keystone habits.
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd heard it when you brought it up, and I was like, okay, I'm going to try and adopt certain inalienable habits every day when I get out of bed. We just discussed joy of growth being one of Clinton Cybulski's favorite things about life. We quickly brought up after that keystone habits. Let's explain keystone habits.
Keystone habits. Now, many people wish they could do different things in their life, and we go through each day, one after another, saying, boy, I wish I was better at this, or I wish I could do more of this. And many of us fall short, and it can be really frustrating not getting to that thing that you want to be better at. And maybe it's waking up and jumping out of bed. Maybe it's being more efficient with your time. Maybe it's spending more time with your family. Maybe it's being better at getting to the gym. Maybe it's not doing that thing that you typically do as a vice, maybe like drinking, for instance. What is the thing that helps you stay on the straight and narrow? And so everyone has different keystone habits that either send them in the right direction or maybe the direction they don't want to travel. And so what if there was different things when you woke up in the morning that made you immediately align in the right direction? And those things would be referred to as keystone habits. Some keystone habits you can consider is some people say, hey, I wake up and I go for my morning run, and that just lines everything up. Some people, they wake up and they say, hey, I have my cup of coffee, and that lines everything up. You see some people with the T-shirt that says, don't talk to me until I've had my coffee, right?
Yes.
Some people do, like myself, try something like this. They wake up in the morning and they go through three things. They say three things they're grateful for. All right. Many people wake up in the morning and immediately we go, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm frustrated. What
Negative.
if negative thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah. What if your first things you thought in the morning was something you're grateful for instead? So 3 gratefuls. Then the second piece to that would be, today will be great when I do blank. Yeah.
Nice.
I brought that up, Clinton, the last time through a car bite, actually, talking about instead of being a have to, have it be a get to.
Yeah.
And I used a funny one. I used going to the dentist. I had to go to the dentist to get a tooth pulled 2 weeks ago. And I was like, I'm going to see it instead of I have to go to the dentist to get a tooth extracted. I'm going to say, I get to go to the dentist to have a tooth extracted. I was like, why not enjoy it? And then right after I had it done, I had my mouth packed full of gauze. And I was like, what do you think yeah. So that was a bit of a have-tos versus get-tos. And I think get-tos actually make your life a little bit better.
Yeah, and then a lot of people go through life thinking, you talk to somebody and say, hey, how was your day? Mm-hmm. And somebody will say, oh, my day was good or bad because my day was bad because it was raining.
Right.
Or, oh, my day was bad because I had to go out and do this, or like you just said there, Brandon. Or, they come up with many different reasons based on things they can't control.
Right.
But instead, hey, today will be great when I just make my bed. It's super easy. I don't have to put much effort into it. And now I've made something in my mind to tell myself, hey, today will be great. I've done something to make today great. Today's going to be great.
Making your bed when you get out of bed.
Yeah.
I heard a little blurb a little while ago about that. Is like the Marines, that's the first thing the United States Marine Corps, the first thing they do when they get out of bed every day is make their bed. Yeah. And that's what starts their positive day off. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be a damn Marine. I'm gonna be a Marine. I'm gonna be a Marine. I'm gonna make my bed every day.
Right.
So I feel like a champion when I have a nice made bed in the morning, and then I'm like, okay, now I can really start making my life better every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm a big. We can discuss this ad nauseum. These keystone habits, really. And I'm trying to look for a segue to get. How does basketball coincide with keystone habits?
Okay, so for me, basketball is one of those individual things that just brings me so much joy. And when you find something in your day that brings you joy, I feel like it can, I picture it almost like one of those Gatorade tanks, like your joy in your body is like a Gatorade tank. And as you fill it up, it gets so overflowed that it's easy for it to overflow on other people. Basketball is my thing for that. When I go and play basketball, it's incredibly easy to overflow joy on others.
Aww.
And so that's my keystone habit for, yes, I do my morning routine, but getting out to play and just shoot in a gym or shoot outside, it doesn't have to be anything special, but doing that 3 times a week just fills up my joy tank that I can then share joy with others.
That's awesome.
When did you start?
When I started playing basketball in grade 10, most people
started late.
I started
I
late.
I was grade 8.
Yeah.
So he's a late bloomer when it came to basketball, but he kind of burst onto the scene, and like what the coolest thing about you started in grade 10, which is incredible. I did not know that, Clinton. To go that far and start that late. Let's discuss what you started. This is just blowing my mind. I did not know that about you. You look like a guy that probably picked it up when you were a child, because of your history and how amazing you are at the sport.
Well, I loved basketball and I loved hockey and I loved, my mistake. I loved hockey and I loved soccer, and I didn't really know about basketball. Coming from Kitchener, Ontario, everybody played hockey just like they do here, just like any other little town in Ontario. And I got hit too many times in the head, being someone who's a little bit shorter, especially when I was growing. I was usually around elbow height, and so by no intention of anybody else, it just my head kind of ran into the way of that.
Aww.
And so my dad was someone who was always big on education, and he was afraid if I had too many of those that maybe I wouldn't be able to fulfill a educational career. And so he was just big on the idea of, hey, maybe try something different. And I had a friend who took the city bus with me every day, and he played basketball. And so in order for us to go home every day from school, we'd take the city bus together. But it started as a day in October, kind of like right around now, when he decided to go out for the basketball team at school. And so in order to wait for him on the school bus, or the city bus, I decided to go with him. And so I went to the tryout, and I loved it. And I actually got cut. I got cut from that first team.
Okay, so yeah.
But they needed more people for practices because the volleyball team was really good that season.
And so you made the taxi squad.
I made the taxi squad, yeah. I made the bonus team. And so, long story short, I ended up getting to stay on the team for the rest of the year as kind of just a passer, a screener. But that joy of the game allowed me to get better.
And as far as we know, starting in grade 10 for me, I started grade 8, which was still late, really. And now kids are born with basketballs in their hands.
My grandsons started very young.
But being late bloomers is a difficult thing because you really have a lot of catching up to do. And but to go as far as you have and to have started in grade 10. Yeah, we are still recording. This is supposed to be, yeah, I can delete that. This is supposed to be
moving.
Yeah,
well,
moving.
I was just wondering, we didn't introduce. We didn't.
I think we did.
They all know me.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. She's
But
the co-host.
thank you.
She's the co-host.
That
Yeah.
was kind.
Karen.
That's me.
Yeah.
But if we loop it at the beginning, it'd be like when you said, "I'm Brandon here."
Yeah.
And then if you're like, "Brandon, like we're here on the scene. Karen, Brandon are here, and we're here excited to."
Let's do it.
And then that way, then you feel comfortable jumping in all the
I
time.
know. What a gentleman.
Very much.
Let's keep that in there. I'm not gonna. Yeah. My bad. My bad. I didn't introduce our amazingly funny and intuitive co-host,
Stop.
Karen, and our main man right now is Clinton Cybulski, who I'm just
Our famous.
every time Clinton and I get together and it's usually for a session with for an adjustment or for regular maintenance with chiropractic, I learn more about, and yeah, he's only 107 years old. You shared that with me the other day.
Yeah.
I
Moisturize daily.
I was just going to ask.
Yes.
he uses lotions. He does. He uses lotions. And so yeah, Keystone Habits we brought up. We've discussed starting late in basketball, which I'm still blown away by. And let's talk about my mom called basketball my greatest vent. When I started taking it up in, I guess that would be 14 years old. I was pretty good by the time I was 16, but I was also a soccer player, and my dad died when I was 16. I found basketball to be the best outlet for a kid that wants to play a sport alone. You can play basketball alone. It's different with soccer. It's different with hockey. It's different with football. You need other people. You can become a great shooter and a great basketball player by playing alone.
Yeah.
And watching, we discussed movies, Hoosiers.
Yeah.
I always felt connected with the Jimmy character, the kid who was the best on the team, but he would always be shooting alone, and he never came to be the best on the team right away, and he would constantly be shooting the ball outside on his driveway, always shooting and very rarely missing. I wasn't that great, but I really connected with that character because of that essential thing about basketball is you can be good at it and not have anybody be an opponent.
True.
I thought. So
My grandson plays by himself a lot.
and
He goes to the Y by himself.
it's a vent.
Yeah.
It's such a vent.
And
it's
he has so much energy.
It's so good therapy. It's such good therapy. It's the mental health around basketball and then when you get other people involved and start a pickup game or play some bump or play some 21 or
Let's lean into that. Why do you think that is? Because soccer, I think, does have that to a certain degree. You go outside and a kid can
dribble,
can juggle, right? And they still need a net, but so does a basketball player. And we see that more in North America, where somebody will take a basketball and go out and explore and try. And I think they see that more in Europe with soccer. Why do players like doing that? Why do kids like doing that so much as that individual piece to it? What is the joy from that? Why do people do that?
I think it's just honing your skills and getting better at it yourself. And then when you introduce yourself to, it's funny, like I always relate back to like the guy sitting on the bench watching the game, and you get called in, and you come in and you immediately make an impact.
Yeah.
There's that. There's this amazingly. Did you ever read Sacred Hoops by Phil Jackson?
I've not finished it.
The way Phil Jackson, who is the most rewarded coach player in one of the most rewarded coaches and players in NBA history.
Yeah.
I believe 10 coach rings and 2 player rings. But the way he goes into the zen of basketball is that it's a fixer to your life when you add that components that just be able to work on your shot alone every day, or work on your defense, or read something, or watch a game and see how the plays are made up, and kind of hone your basketball IQ, which is a big one I wanted to talk about with you, because a player like you, my guess, you're 5'9", relatively thin. It'd be difficult for you to.
Wow, thank you.
Well, he's buff.
He's never said that about me.
He's buff. But what I would think about you, Clinton, is that your basketball IQ and your knowledge of the game supersedes any type of skill that you have, and then the skills are added on top of that.
Wow.
Is how I would relate to.
I paid him to say all these things before I came here, everyone.
That's how
you know.
Yeah, that's how I felt about. I'm like, wow, all these stories you were telling me. I'm like, okay, well, I know a few guys like that. There's actually a couple in this area as well who were very good. But in Peel region, growing up there early on, I became a man in Cobourg, but I was a kid from Bramalea. But there are a few. There's a handful of guys that went as far as possible. Not quite pro, but played in Indonesia and France and Philippines and stuff like that, or got the big one that growing up was Sherman Hamilton was a guy that I played against, and I was. You don't know Sherman?
No.
He's a commentator for the Raptors now.
Is he the one
Played
that
for Team
sounds
Canada?
like
Played for Team Canada.
Everybody Loves Raymond?
I don't think so.
No, that's. I think you're thinking of Jack
Armstrong.
Yes, it is.
Bonjour.
Right. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sherman was a kind of like a legendary player in Peel. Bobby Allen was another one. Earl Clara, Humphrey Hill. I didn't grow up around Tristan Thompson, but I do know he came from, I believe, Central Peel in Brampton. Mm-hmm. It was quite a hub, and it still is. I don't know, just how did you make it, Clinton, from Kitchener as this kid that started late, probably played every day once you started, outside, inside. A gym rat, basically, is what I believe you probably became. But how did that all start, and why did you fall in love with the sport?
I think first it was kind of being naive, and I loved the game of basketball, and I loved how hard it was. When I first started playing soccer and hockey, because I had started at a young age, it was almost like people had given a roadmap of here's all the things you do to become good at it. And I had become fairly good in our area at those two sports, and I had just slowly lost the fun in soccer, and I didn't train at it every day. And the same thing kind of with hockey. I'd been shown the roadmap. I had, went to practices, did all these things that they ask you to do, but I'd never really trained the game, and one was taken from me, and one I just kind of lost the fun in. And right at the same time, it was like perfect timing where my friend introduced me to this game that was incredibly difficult, that I knew nothing really about. And I was probably just really naive and thinking about how good someone had to be at it. Mm-hmm. Like I would watch a game. I remember watching old Raptors games at that time. thinking most people made all their shots. I was like, wow, look at how often they make it. Look at how good their dribbling is. So I started figuring maybe I had to consistently make those shots. Maybe I had to consistently become a really good dribbler. And if I was going to catch up, I guess I had to do it every day. So the daily discovery of it, I think, was the first thing, and being naive that I had to. So some of that involves sneaking into a lot of gyms.
Right.
Some of it becoming really good friends with some custodial staff that are still friends to this day that I could go into gyms in the Kitchener area. Some of it was
After
just,
hours, yeah, without and like a chaperone or whatever, you would just make friends with a custodian and they would let you in.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Even when I graduated in high school, our custodian Greg, he gave me like when you get an award at school, it was usually a teacher that would give them out. When you walk down when you walk up on the stage, it was our custodian that gave it to me.
Wow.
And so I would say that was probably my closest friend in high school, just because we spent so much time together. I knew everything about his family. I knew everything about his 2 kids. And so that was more my experience of realizing I had to discover it daily. I had to train at it daily. And because it seemed so hard, I really liked that. I liked pushing myself hard at it. And there was so many players around me that were so wonderful about it. When other cultures,
You were well coached.
And I was also well accepted. Like the players that were all much better than me, seeing me try, would always show me. Now we say it. They show you the game, or they talk you the game. They taught me a lot of the skills and drills. They weren't afraid to, if we went to the YMCA and there was games of 3v3 or 5v5, and if you win, you stay, even though I was probably the worst person in the gym, they would put me on their team and be okay with allowing me to have discovery, versus in other sports I had played in the past, there was so much competitive level to it. And this still was very competitive. Our school was one of the largest schools. St. Mary's High School was one of the largest high schools in Ontario at the time. So it was hard to make that team. But it still wasn't a rep basketball team. And I think that separation of playing rep hockey and rep soccer, where everybody's kind of competing and vying for spots.
It's very political as well. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I was probably too young to realize the political side of it. But I just had really great teammates. I had coaches that deeply cared about the game, about treating the game the right way, about coaching us as kids, as young men, teaching us what we want to do as young men and as basketball players. And I just fell in love with that whole experience. I genuinely don't ever feel like I had a negative experience in basketball. And so that's what pushed me to want to go back to the gym every day. It wasn't that I was trying to get away from anything else. It was the fact that, hey, everything else is okay, but this is awesome. Like, I love this, and I want to do it as much as I can.
Wow.
So that's what pushed me forward.
And you are 30?
Well, I thought it was 107, but
in the
30,
reality
32 in human years.
32.
Yeah.
So a national championship.
Yep. So I first was under the impression that I was being recruited at the University of Waterloo. So I first played my first year in grade 10. My coach actually thought it was going to be my last year, so he signed me up for a local basketball camp. At that basketball camp, I met somebody who came on the third day, who was someone who ran basketball camps across the country. His name was Manu Watsa, and then he did a little speech, and he dunked the ball, and I was really excited to just say thank you to him. He gave me a pitch to come to his basketball camp, which I'm sure he did to every kid that was at that camp. But I, through going to one of his camps and being inspired of his story, and now still getting the chance to work with his corporation known as PGC Basketball.
PGC Point Guard College.
That really grew my game. That really took my game off and on the court from, you talk about the IQ or the understanding of the game off the court. It took that from knowing nothing to knowing a lot quickly. And so in my grade 11 year, I got to play a bit. My grade 12 year, I got to play a lot. My 5th year, I stayed around, and so I got really, really good. And I was under the impression I was being recruited by the University of Waterloo. The coach would talk to me. The point guard at that time, David Burnett, if you're out there, what's up? He would have me come do some workouts with him. And think about that. I was a 5th-year student. This guy was in his last year of university. And he would have me come down, and he would show me different shooting workouts. He would put me through different body workouts that I still do, and I show kids these days. The fact that he was willing to spend that time with me was incredible. But at the same time, the head coach was interested with me until he wasn't. And at that point, I was so committed to going to that school. Mono Watsa had gone to that school. David Burnett had gone to that school.
Wow.
I was under the impression that the coach was recruiting me. He was inviting me to their workouts. And I was tying my shoes in their gym for one of their workouts after a school day in second week of June, after I'd already been accepted to the University of Waterloo. And he came down and he sat beside me. And as he did, there was another point guard that came in to the gym. And that point guard was from St. Catherine's. And he was a very good high school point guard. And so that's who they ended up recruiting. But the coach sat down beside me and said, "Hey, Clint, we actually don't have a space for you next year. You're welcome to try to come on as a walk-on, but we won't be able to offer you a scholarship." I was devastated.
That just broke my heart.
I like this story.
Yeah.
Because I do know, I know. So, like, yeah, keep going.
Because so from grade 10 to fifth year, I was, on this track that I was getting better. And I'd only applied to 2 schools. One, Brock University, because they'd won a championship recently.
Right.
And I liked their head coach, who is this little 5'9" guy named Brad Roots. And I had applied to the University of Waterloo. Oh, I also forgot that my mom had gone there. So it was like I was going to fulfill all these different, my track, in my mind, I was very determined to go to the University of Waterloo. And then I felt so embarrassed by the idea that I wasn't going to be on the team that I actually went to Brock. And Brock wasn't recruiting me, but I was able to walk on at Brock, and I got better, and I played there 2 years. And it was enough to get interest from a Division II basketball coach in the U.S. who, through PGC, that company that I was working with under Mono, that he offered me a half academic, half athletic scholarship to go there and play. And so I got to play there for 2 years, where the first year I learned behind an all-American point guard, Michael Stanley, who was like 6 foot, but just, really, really smart player, almost rebound. I think he had 10 rebounds a game. You might have to fact check that via Google. But taught me so much about the game. And then my senior year, I got to play a lot more, and we won a national championship. And I shot 50, 40, 90 my time there. I got the chance to try out for the Toronto 905, where I made it to a 14-day training camp. Jerry Stackhouse, who is a very impressive player that played in the NBA. He was the head coach.
Wow.
Guys that played or was at that training camp included Norman Powell, Pascal Siakam.
Wow.
These are the guys that
Van
he
Fleet,
had the opportunity to play with.
Wow.
Bruno Caboclo. And so it came down to there was 3 guys for the final cut. And one was me. They're very honest about this stuff. They said, "Hey, we're looking for one guy for this final spot. One is you, Clint, and you would just be our Canadian guy. Hey, you're a feel-good story. We'd love to have you on the roster." Lots of people would probably come to just see that. The second guy is Grandy Glaze. He played on our national team. He was 6'6", could guard every position. Grandy, if you're out there, hello. And then the last guy, he was actually trying out for the Raptors. But he was trying out for a 2-way gig, which would mean he would play half the season with the Toronto 905, half the season with the Raptors. And that guy ended up getting the gig, and his name was Fred Van Vliet.
All right, we're going to stop there. We're going to continue that. It was an incredible...
Wow.
I like the ending of you lost your position there to Fred Van Vliet.
To Freddie.
Wow.
Snackable Mental Health.ca.